And a very warm welcome to the final session of the third African Economic Congress. African Economic Congress is a distiller of thoughts and ideas of policymakers from all around the continent of Africa on how to better the economic development of Africa. Now, over the past 3 days, we've had people, technocrats, bureaucrats, policymakers, researchers, and innovators converge on a televised and virtual edition of the African Economic Congress to share ideas on trade, on finance and technology and infrastructure, on agriculture, on women, on creativity, and finally, just like a captain who sets ashore sailing to a destination, we have come to the point where we would be dropping the anchor after the session. My name is Glory Ohago, and I'll be the master of ceremony for one last time. Together here, I have Lydia Nicholas, who ensures that we include everyone in our deliberations and whatever we're doing here. Now, youths on the continent of Africa make up 60% of the population. And when I say 60%, I mean those who are under 25. Now you can already see the future forecast because it means that's where the future will tilt to. Youth capitalizing on the ripple effect of human capital is very important to our mission for growth in Africa. For the continent of Africa, which is in fact the youngest continent in the world, and in line with our vision of keeping up with the pace of growth long term, we must reskill, retool, and create an enabling environment to help our youth thrive and compete on an international scale. For this reason, we will be discussing with our panelists in the youth session tagged Enabling the African Youth and how we can develop Africa's human capital to spearhead economic transformation. Now you don't want to miss that. On the youth enabling Africa Youth, on the panel we have Professor Jonathan Moyo, a former Minister of Education in Zimbabwe. He's a former Minister of Information and Publicity, Zimbabwe. He's a politician and former member of the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, ZANU-PF, the party, a former program director for the Ford Foundation in Nairobi. Still on this panel, we have Rotimi Olawale, who's the Chief Executive Officer of YouthHub Africa. He's a youth development expert listed by the Nigerian government as one of the 15 Nigerian youths on the world stage in 2008, consulted by national and international agencies, including the World Bank, the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, the African Development Bank, AFDB, the International Republican Institute, IRI, and the African Union Youth Division, amongst others, on various issues related to youth policies and development. We also have the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Muzikol and Abeboh, a multi-award African entrepreneur and president of Muzikol Music Awards Computer, engineer with specialization in software engineering, who holds a certification in music business from the School of Music Business in London. On this panel, the moderator will be Kennedy Ekezie Joseph, Chief Executive Officer
who might be en route to us because this is an era of technology. We never can tell before I'm over. He might be here, but he's a founder keeper, the first Nigerian recipient of the Yenching Scholarship, dubbed the Chinese Rhodes Scholarship, who previously worked at a center and by tendons where he built TikTok's Africa's business strategy, working from the Beijing headquarters and recognized by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as the Queen's young leader. While we wait for Kennedy to join us, I'd like to stand in for him as I welcome the panelists who are online. Hello, everyone. Hello. Nges Brian, hello. Hello, Rotimi. It's so nice to have all of you here. So I'm going to start with you, Rotimi. Right now, when you palpate and look at the permutations and all what's going on, what do you think the level of youth engagement is on the continent of Africa so far?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to join today's conversation as a continuation of the Africa Economic Congress. To go first question that you've asked me about the level of youth engagements that we see on the continent nowadays. I think that the level of youth engagement that we can see can be quantified into different strata in the areas of, for instance, technology. Young people on the continent are playing a leading role to bring technology to people and to create innovative solutions for young people across the continent and beyond. We have seen in the last 24 months a number of African startups led by young people who have achieved unicorn status in fintech, in business to business, and in providing innovative solutions across board. On the other hand, also, we have various challenges that are coming up in several African countries. COVID has also exposed that education, there's a challenge with the educational sector, where during COVID, schools were locked down. Millions of kids and young people across Africa were unable to access quality education, and that also is a huge challenge. The second challenge is also unemployment. Unemployment in Nigeria is double digit. We see similar figures in Kenya, in Egypt, where they are also struggling with unemployment figures. In South Africa, it's even higher, where you have a huge number of especially young people who are unemployed, and this is a big challenge that we're seeing across board. In the last 1 year also, there's been some challenge around democratic governance on the continent, where we have seen what we thought we have left in the past, which is military coups come up in a number of countries. We've seen in Guinea, most recently in Sudan, and very recently we're monitoring the situations happening in Ethiopia, and this will roll back some of the democratic governance gains that young people have led and have been part of championing all over the continent. As you know, in Sudan, for instance, young people were at the helm of asking for a change in governance, where the former president al-Bashir has held forth for a long time, but has then pushed in a new dispensation, ushering the opportunity for young people to contribute to the economic development of that country. So on both sides, we see a lot of positives, where young people are at the forefront of promoting change and leading change across the continent, but we still see some of the teething challenges that we continue to battle as we move ahead within the continent.
Okay, so I'll still stay with you, since you have already pointed out some of these challenges before I move over to our next panelist. What's the way out of these challenges? Because when you see a problem, the way to getting out of it and creating a level ground where you walk at par with others in other continents is the solution.
Excellent, and I totally agree with you. I think that there are a number of emerging opportunities that we need to see how to harness in order to promote solutions to some of the challenges that we see. One of them is the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which is now been signed by, I think, about 53 to 54 of the countries on the continent, with headquarters in Ghana, in Accra, as a framework on how Africa can improve on intra-Africa trade, and reducing some of the bottlenecks that we see. Good agreement on paper, but if we move through the agreement on paper and into implementation very quickly, it will unleash the kind of trade that we want to see on the continent. As of today, it's easier for anyone to order for goods in London or in New York via Amazon and deliver. More difficult if I find a product in Nairobi or in Accra. If I see shea butter in Accra and I want to order to Lagos, it's very difficult. So we need to solve these challenges. And the Africa Free Trade Agreement provides a framework and also enormous opportunities for us to do so. As we speak, world leaders are gathered in Glasgow in Scotland discussing about response to climate change. And just today, the South African government signed an agreement with the EU, the US, on how to convert the coal that they use in powering some of the economy to renewable energy. So renewable energy is also a future, represents an opportunity for countries like Nigeria to leapfrog the challenge of powering our economies, because look, for several years, we've not been able to light up Nigeria. And so we need to take advantage of this push around climate change and focus on renewable energy to power the economy and provide new and emerging solutions for our young people. So a country like Nigeria should work with our tertiary institutions. The African government should work with tertiary institutions to retool the next set of generation leaders that was training to our tertiary institutions to go and study issues around renewable energy, climate solutions, in order that we can reap the advantage that is coming in the next future. Young people are positioned. We have the youngest population on the continent in the world, and we need to retool them in order to take advantage of these emerging opportunities that we see in the fort.
Thank you very much, Rotimi. Professor Jonathan Moyo, I see that you're already online, and it's so good to have you here. Now, since Olawale has already spoken about reskilling, retooling, and rescaling, can you hear me, Prof? Prof, please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Professor Moyo, can you hear me, please? A thumbs up if you can. Well, since he's not giving me a thumbs up, I think I'll move on to you, Nges Brian. You have done so much, and you've become like someone who sets the pace on certain issues on the continent of Africa. But permit me ask, does Africa have the enabling environment for youth to embrace entrepreneurship, especially in a digital economy? Do we have it? Ryan?
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today and to talk on this enabling African youth. Personally, as an entrepreneur on the continent of Africa, working in the digital economy or digital ecosystem, I think that Africa is beginning to see a lot of progress when it comes to development of digital and technological products that actually brings hope to the table for Africa, and tells us that in the next couple of years or in the next few days, in the days ahead, Africans can actually be able to build and support our digital ecosystem. The reality on ground is true. It's a little bit way more difficult for us on the continent of Africa to have access to certain resources than those in the West. But at the end of it all, I really see a great improvement in the number of opportunities on the continent with the rising of entrepreneurship programs such as the African Prize of Engineering and Innovation by the Royal Academy of Engineering in the United Kingdom that really supports developing entrepreneurs on the continent. We have platforms like African Entrepreneurship Awards. We have a lot of these programs, and then you can also see a lot of technological hubs that are being built around the continent of Africa, such as Active Spaces in Cameroon, which actually brings together a lot of young entrepreneurs and people who are excited in getting hands-on with the digital economy to build a lot of amazing things. We have also seen a rise in the number of tech projects, just like Rotimi said earlier. We've seen a lot of African young companies breaking the unicorn, becoming unicorns and stuff like that in less than no time. We've also seen a lot of financial growth, a lot of investment in the last few years in the continental scene. So I think that there is a lot of fast growth when it comes to support for the African digital economy, but a lot still needs to be done to really take us to that age.
And when you say a lot still needs to be done, in few sentences, tell us about this lot that needs to be done.
I think we still need to do a lot on sensitization, because even when you look at it, you discover that most of these products are built in very small areas of the continent. We can actually say, for example, Joburg in South Africa, Nairobi in Kenya, Lagos, Accra, might be Buea in Cameroon, and a few towns. And even when you get to those towns, you discover that the tech ecosystem is circulating around 1 or 2 or 3 hubs, okay, which tells us that a lot still needs to be done when it first of all comes to the education, technological education, and the advancement of digital incorporation of digital solutions. I also think that incorporating digital solutions into the African business sector, African developed digital solutions, is still something a lot of African businesses are scared away, are scared. I've seen a lot of cases where African companies prefer to buy technological products from Western companies than from home-based tech startups. So I still think we need to do a lot, especially when it comes to the education of tech. In Cameroon, let me take for example, we don't have technology like that computing really embedded onto the primary level of academic. I don't know how it is in Nigeria, but in Cameroon, if you start looking at computing, it will start coming at secondary level, and when you get into the university and stuff. So I think we still need to do a lot when it comes to building ourselves into that tech ecosystem. And I believe that the future of the world is around technology. Everybody's going digital, mobile as well. So if Africans don't take the lead in building these products for ourselves, we might end up in a situation where we will still be left with what they give us, rather than us building for our own, or being sustainable as an independent continent.
Okay, so you believe that you're saying that Africans should believe in the technology emanating from Africa to solve African problems.
Yes.
Did I get you right there? I now move over to Professor Jonathan Moyo. Prof, you're welcome. Prof, a lot seems to be wrong with the education system on the continent of Africa. And I think this is a reason why when Africans move on to other continents of the world, they need recertification before they're being accepted into the streams of industries in those continents. Prof, so as a starter, what is wrong with the African educational system, especially as it concerns science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? Okay, it would seem that Prof is still, might be having a little bit of technical glitch there, because I can see him, but I guess we'll come back to that question with him. Rotimi, what do you think is leading to this? Why the loss of so much interest in young people from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which seems to be the way forward for the continent of Africa, if we have to sit on the same table with developed continents of the world?
I think that what we have on the continent is what people say, that there is an abundance of talent, but what we do not have is an abundance of opportunities. And so you find a situation where we have trained X number of engineers in Nigeria, but you would see that they are mostly hired in banks and financial institutions, because that's where jobs are readily available. And so I would say in such a scenario, it's a waste of resources, because one, they have invested personal resources from themselves, from their families, has probably subsidized that education if they go to a public institution on the continent. And then when they come out and there's no connection between the private sector, the industry, and the universities, then it's a waste of resources. Today, there's practically very little research that is being done in our higher institutions. In many institutions across the world, majority of innovation, leading innovation that is being done that we see across the world emanate from university. When the entire world faced the challenge of COVID, you see researchers in several universities across the world go into their labs to begin to ask questions, how can we find the solution? And this is based on years and years and years of research. It doesn't happen overnight. And we need to begin to make those investments. And this investment is not going to happen from government alone. We need the cooperation of the organized private sector. I always say, if organized private sector can pool funds together to fund all kinds of shows that we see on TV and present winning amounts for popular programs that people watch on TV, then it means that with the support of government, they can pool such funds together to fund and finance programs that will help us to train and retool our next set of engineers and young people who are interested in STEM. Now, when you want to build the skills in STEM, it does not even start at the university level. We have to start from the grassroots. These days, if you go to public institutions, not only in Nigeria, in Ghana, across the continent, the level of quality education that kids receive in primary school, which is the foundation that they will build on in secondary and post-secondary, is very poor. And so when people do not have numeracy skills, literacy skills in primary 5, primary 6, you ask somebody who is 10 years old, probably in primary 5, to ask them to identify 5-letter words, to write that down. They can't do so. They can't do simple addition. They can do multiplication. Then it's going to be difficult for them to build anything on it. If you go into secondary schools across the continent today, there's no laboratories. There are many laboratories that are dilapidated. I walk into a school in Copenhagen and I see what high school students are experimenting with. When I was in university, we didn't even have the chance to experiment with some of the things high school students in other countries are experimenting with. So we cannot produce magic. But what I always say to people, when our brains leave the continent and go elsewhere, they excel. Why are they excelling? It's because the opportunities exist. They can use the resources. They have books in the library, and so they can compete at a level playing field. So what we're asking on the continent is to create such level playing field for our students in order that they can compete favorably and be able to be retooled in a way that they have the global opportunities as well as the global standards.
Thank you, Olawale. And as a follow-up to that, I come back to you, Nges Brian. You were the lead when it did come to Africa and TikTok. And TikTok has spread like wildfire on the continent of Africa. Now, considering that the digital economy has opened channels for new technological opportunities, how can Africa actively encourage innovation, creativity, and exploration, and of course, the exploitation of these new opportunities? Brian?
Yeah, so I think that the coming of a lot of digital innovations like TikTok and even Facebook, though it's not relatively new, has really I think it's really impacting the economy of Africa, especially the young age, because with the coming of TikTok, we've actually seen a rise in the number of, let me take, for example, in the music space, celebrities, a lot of TikTok, we see a lot of TikTok models and a lot of social media influencers that are coming up, and they're actually being paid for some of the work. And then we even see music goes very viral right now on TikTok. So you cannot really put up a music campaign for promotion and actually exclude TikTok, for example, on it. But I think that we still need to improve on the level of connectivity on the continent. Internet access, for example, is still a far-fetched dream to a lot of Africans in a lot of parts of Africa. You don't get good access to connection. In fact, even in major cities across the continent. So I think we still need to do a lot of work when it comes to our connectivity. Number one, I think we also need to do a lot of work when it comes to positive education on the use of these platforms. They say on social media, you can get both the good, the bad, and the ugly. So how do we actually scale down these things for positive impact on the continent? Because you can actually get connected to almost everyone around the world for positive work, as well as negative work. So I think the African continent, we still need to do a lot of work on this area by actually investing on it. Bringing the tech experts, to do the analysis, and then look at the right opportunities where Africans can actually jump on these areas. But there's a lot of opportunities on platforms like that.
Thank you so very much. I'll go back once again to Professor Jonathan Moyo. Prof, can you hear me? I'd like a thumbs up if you can hear me, please. Greetings, Prof. Can you hear me? Well, this might be another case of connectivity, but while I still wait and hopefully we can hear Prof and Prof can hear us and contribute, I come back to you, Rotimi. What ways can we explore? What are the ways as a young person on the continent of Africa and seeing the different hues, colors, and nuances of the countries that make up the African continent? What ways could we explore to develop the human capital of the youth and channel them to more value-added activities which would impact on the economy and the development of the continent?
I think that there are a number of things that we can begin to focus on, and I'm happy that my colleague has spoken a lot about the impact of social media. When I speak to people, I say social media has democratized the opportunities for people to create content by themselves and market it to their peers for it to be consumed, and also when they hit a certain scale, be able to make money from that process. In the past, developing content was the sole purview of big television stations, and young people on the continent can only consume. And what that has done in a sense, in the last couple of years and decades, following the revolution of the Nollywood industry that produced content for people all over the world, especially on the continent, to consume. What it has also done is that we've seen the rise and emergence of young stars who rise from nothing to fame within a couple of months. These days, 20 years ago, when I left university, if you asked my graduating class, hey, is there any job known as a social media manager or content creator? We didn't know what that was called. Today, people are hired to create content on social media, to develop strategies, to study the platforms, to look at TikTok, to develop strategy for that, to do social media. But at the end of the day, is that people are able to generate content based upon the ideals of the continent and put that forward on social media and make an income for it. And that's one strand of it. The second strand of it is that people are also able to create commerce. If you take a poll of young people who have a job, who are somewhat within the middle class in any of the African countries, they would tell you they have shopped on Instagram, they've ordered for a taxi on a mobile phone app, they've ordered for a food delivery to be delivered to their doorstep in their houses based on something they saw on social media and they love. It gives people the opportunity to showcase their skills, showcase their talent, and also market the things that they do. And that represents an opportunity. In many countries on the continent, our leaders focus on the bad side of social media. Is there a bad side of social media? Yes, it is. In some countries, we've seen social media being banned, Twitter being banned in Nigeria, controlled in some other countries as a result of elections and stuff like that. But we need to look at how we can harness these kinds of tools for our nation's development and development overall. But not just to focus on the fact that social media is a silver bullet. It is not. I think at the bedrock of developing Africa's future is our education, and we need to get it right. We need to ensure that we have quality education, not just an education that presupposes everybody will get into a higher institution. No, we need to focus on our technical and vocational education. How can we build the quality vocational skills? Today, if you want to hire a mason in Abuja or in Accra, it's very difficult to find a professional mason because the system at which we grow them and we train them has been based on the apprenticeship model and sustained over the years. We need to change that into a system that recognizes certification, that looks at professionalism, and can guarantee a certain quality across board. That way, we can generate income for young people who don't have the opportunity to go to higher institutions, but they can make a decent living to support themselves, their family, and make wonderful contributions to their society and community at large.
Thank you very much, Rotimi. Now, for all our virtual participants, the ground rule is if you have any question or any comment, just drop them in the chat box. If it's a question, let's know who you're addressing it to, and there will be a time where those questions will come to the fore, and then we would ask them and make your voices heard, because on the African Economic Congress platform, it's all about making your voices heard and ensuring that your contributions are heard too. So I see Adam Olale Konlawa raising his hand. So just write your question there and then we'll get back to it. Now, Professor Jonathan Moyo, can you hear us now? Prof. Moyo, can you hear us now? Because so much has been said about education. Professor Moyo, could you unmute yourself? Because I'm sure you can unmute yourself. You can hear us so you can make your contribution. We rarely need your contribution on this session. Please unmute yourself. Unmute the microphone on your Zoom app, please. Okay, I'll come back to you, Nges. Nges, for every young African who's looking at you now, after reading your resume, they'll say, oh, you have made it big. Did it come to you quite easy? Because behind every successful journey, there is often an unheard story. So is that something that tweaked you to where you are now? And how were there moments where you didn't think you could make it, and then you push yourself forward? Brian?
Yeah, so the journey of entrepreneurs in the continent of Africa is a very tough and challenging one for anyone who has put their foot on that path. It's a very lonely street that you have to walk down, but at the end of it, it's very fruitful if you stay focused and you also understand, first of all, you understand what you are trying to do, and then you put together the right resources and the right team to be able to build whatever product you are building and trying to put together on the continent. The resources, public resources, are mostly very limited, but the good news is that there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of skill, and there's a lot of people on the continent who are looking for opportunities as well. And if you have a good project, trust me, you can definitely put together and then walk it down.
That's you unfolding the story without telling the story. Now, it is being said that one rich man in the midst of many poor men is actually a very poor man. So they would say a prosperous, diversified economy can't happen in nothingness. It can't happen in a vacuum. It's initiated, led and managed by a competitive and skilled workforce. How many of Brian's have you replicated in your zone to ensure that you're not the only Brian pushing this entrepreneurship? And how competitive and skilled are these people?
I missed the last part of the question. Talking about the numbers.
Okay, let me take that again. The first line I did use is, how many Brians have you replicated? It signifies a place of mentorship the place of going back to the lonely road to say, I am not walking alone. Because a successful continent in a digital economy, in the fourth revolution, would depend on a quality of young people who initiate, lead, and manage through competition and their skills. So, how many youths like you do you have in your space? And are the African youths really ready?
I think mentorship is very important when it comes to development of entrepreneurs and development of skill. And everybody as an entrepreneur, I think almost everybody as an entrepreneur on the continent of Africa has a mentor and mentors. So it's a two-way thing, which definitely comes with how you feel about the particular person in question, mostly the project, the relatability with the project. But for me, I'm working with a lot of people. Currently, we have a handful of projects we're developing. Some are directly owned by my tech company, Abeboh. Some are not. I have about 3 people in my space right now who are building their own independent products. And so I'm not the only one doing that. I think a handful of African startups, tech startups, are also doing a lot because it's passion. For me, it's about the passion. If I see any young guy who is very passionate about what they want to do and they want to build, and they're putting in the energy, I'm open. I personally believe most African entrepreneurs are doing the exact same thing, especially in the digital ecosystem, because we all we mostly speak the same language. Yeah.
Professor Jonathan Moyo, if you can hear us, please, could you unmute yourself, because the subject of education is the bedrock through which most of the development for the young people would occur. And like Rotimi would say, if we lose it at the basic education level, then we've lost it. So Prof. Moyo, if you can, could you unmute yourself before I move back to Rotimi? Well, I'll still come back to you, Rotimi. Rotimi, okay. Prof, was that you? Rotimi, I'll come to you. We seem to be having a bit of glitch connecting with Prof. Moyo. Rotimi, what can we do to fix it? I know you had said it has to start from the basic education level before it transcends to where we get to the university. But do you also think that just like in Asia and other developed countries of the world, where most of the subjects are being taught in the local language, it has helped in the development of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? What can countries on the continent of Africa do to fix this vacuum in the continent's educational system?
All right. In response to your question on what can we do, I think that some of these solutions are already known. I think that various countries need to concentrate on their comparative advantage. And I think for nations like, for instance, in Nigeria, interestingly, we've built a lot of comparative advantages on a number of things. One of it is that because we've hosted oil and gas resources in Nigeria since the early 70s, we've developed a lot of human capital around oil and gas. And interestingly, in my travel across the continent, I have seen that we've exported a lot of our human capital development on oil and gas into several countries around the continent. I'm always proud to see that. In East Africa, you would see that they have focused a lot more on tourism. If you go to Kenya, to Tanzania, they've developed the tourism ecosystem there, and we need to focus on that comparative advantage. In West Africa, you have the cocoa belt in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast. You have that large cocoa belt. We need to begin to come together and say, how do we build the comparative advantage? And we see emerging trends. 10 years ago, if I fly into Accra, you can't find made in Ghana chocolates. Today, if you go to Accra, you can buy made in Ghana chocolates. In supermarkets in Accra, you can buy airport. I can buy made in Nigeria chocolates in Abuja at gourmet stores and all of that. It's a drop in the ocean. We need to continue to build more. And that's where government comes in to play a role to shaping the policies to ensure these emerging enterprises grow, can scale up, can access resources, financial resources at good rate in order for them to scale up and hire more people in order to develop the entire ecosystem. So there are emerging opportunities that we see across the continent. We need to continue to support it, and we need to continue to also pull the private sector who are making money in businesses from here to support the growth in our education sector, to ensure that we see more investment go there in public schools. We have a lot of challenges in Africa. We have the security challenge, which is now a huge problem, not only in Nigeria, across the entire Sahel. Even in East Africa, they are dealing with the issues of Al-Shabaab across the belt between Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, and the Somalian border. There's a lot of security challenge. But if young people are uneducated, they don't have jobs, they wake up early in the morning till night, they don't know when the next meal is going to come for, and they don't have a place to report to work, then they are idle hands that can be recruited into violent extremism. So we need to arrest this trend by ensuring there's quality education. We can provide vocational education, we can provide skills building, we can provide trade, and that young people, which represent the bulk of African population, can help to energize our economies and produce results. I'm happy for what the tech industry is doing. I've seen what the culture industry, Nollywood movies are doing across the continent. That's also huge. Many of them are actually self-developed with very little support from government. If we get more support from government, we can catalyze and scale up some of the good stories that we are hearing in this sector. Agriculture sector across the entire value chain also holds a lot of promise. We don't want to send all our young people back to the farm. Some need to go to the farm, but there's a lot of value across the value chain in processing, in packaging, in exporting these to where it is needed, and in meeting the specific requirement of export. If you want to export sesame seed, for instance, to Europe, there's a certification, there's a process, there's a quality benchmark that you need to meet. Many of our old aged farmers cannot meet it, but we can train our young farmers to be able to meet this demand so that they can earn needed forex.
Now, Rotimi, let me break
in our economy and to support enterprises as they go ahead.
Now, Rotimi, let me break in your train of thoughts there. You have talked about Nigeria, but what are your last words on how young people can accelerate Africa and build the continent back better? Brian, you'd be next. The same question.
Well, I think that the number of ways Nigerian young people have hit a certain level of desperation that if you go into a hall of 100 young people and say, how many of you want to leave Nigeria? 99 of them will raise their hand. Where do you want to go? They want to all go to Canada or the UK or the US. Who's going to develop Nigeria? We can't all run away from Nigeria. We have to stay here and fix our home problem. The first opportunity for anyone living in Nigeria.
I said one sentence. I said one sentence, please.
You have to register
because we're out of time.
Okay. Every 4 years, whoever we vote into government determines a lot policy where the resources of the nation will be invested, whether it will end up in private pockets or to be invested to fix necessary infrastructure. Thank you so very much, Rotimi. And invested in quality education. It's very important.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Rotimi. I think between you and Brian, you've done quite a good job in bringing this session, all the content that it requires. And this is how we would have to end this session on the youth panel on the final session of African Economic Congress, the virtual and TV edition. Nancy is on standby to say the final thank you, and we coast home. Nancy?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Glory. Thank you very much, every one of you. Just as we end this session, I want to say that we're ending on an incredible note. We've come to the end of the 2021 African Economic Congress, Accelerate Africa, Building Back Better. 10 sessions, 46 speakers, all in 3 days with a plethora of brilliant ideas shared. All in all, the Congress has been such a profound virtual think tank experience, and we are grateful to all of you that has joined us as we pilot Africa's economy to a magnificent rebound after the devastating effects of COVID-19. On behalf of the African Economic Congress, I say a most honorable thank you to our To the former President of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, for gracing us with their presence this year. Also to the First Lady of Namibia, Her Excellency Monica Jenkos, for honoring our invitation to interview her for the 2021 AEC magazine. Thank you, Your Excellency. To our esteemed knowledge partners, Deloitte and Next SPD, AEC would not have happened without your immeasurable output as well as support. To our sponsors and partners, the government, Nigerian government, I must say, the Central Bank of Nigeria, Nigeria's Bank of Industry, NASENI, Securities and Exchange Commission, Erisco Foods, Casprints, African Independent Television. We want to say thank you, Signal, as well as Makeup Empire and Bookmatrix. Thank you very much. AEC says a big thank you. And it's from me to you, on behalf of our team, thank you very much. Let us be the change that we want to see in Africa. Thank you, Glory, for being an amazing MC for 3 days. Lydia, thank you also. We'll see you next year, everyone. Goodbye, Africa. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.